What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another edition of MVP Sports Live. My name is Jake Neverman. I'm here with my co-host, not calling you beautiful today, Dave Oster.
Wow. Does that mean I'm ugly today?
You're just all right.
Do I need to redo the hair? Is that what's going on there? Just
Yeah. You're not going to hit everybody with it, Dave? Come on. You didn't say
with what?
You didn't say your line, Dave. Is it just a weird day today, or are we just throwing everything off?
I don't know. What's up, everybody? So what's my line?
Error, buddy.
Hey, everybody. Yeah. It's so unnatural. Like when you force me on the spot to hear myself.
Yeah.
I don't know what my line is, but it's just when I hear Ricky and Sean previously toss it to me, I know what to say.
I'll steer us back. We have a great show lined up for you. Before we get into our first topic, I'm going to throw it over to Dave for the daily plugs for all of our MVP doings.
Yep. So, first off, thank you for joining us if you're here live on Twitch. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube after the fact. If you want to check us out on Twitch, we are live daily, right after Games Daily, about 5 o'clock Central, Games Daily. We're going to be live right after that. Check us out there. If you want to support us, you can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/most valuable. I really don't know that.
That's my podcast. There you go. Well.
Yeah. All right. Nailed it. Moving on. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, great. If you want to be a subscriber on Twitch, that gets you bronze tier membership on Patreon, which gets you into our Discord, gets you a chance to join in on the live shows where we're talking, we're hanging out, we're watching things together. And then it gives you a chance to vote on Wet Boys, which is a daily show we do to talk about the dampest dudes, the soggiest shooters, the moistest of men,
or
the Wet Boys,
or
the mistiest of misses.
There you go.
Yes.
Is that all? Is that all you got?
I can't remember a damn thing.
And the last thing they didn't promote, if you want to join the greatest community you want to grow the greatest community in general, exclamation point Discord, or it's in the description of this video on YouTube. Click it over, join us. If you don't like some of our takes, instead of putting it in the comments and me never responding to it, you could talk to us in the Discord. You can @ me directly, and maybe I'll answer you. Maybe I'll give you a sarcastic backtone like I usually do. It's a good time.
You've been known to do that. Yep.
Every now and then. But now we're going to move on into our first topic, and our first topic is the Orlando Magic. And, like I said last time, it's the trade deadline. We're starting to get trade rumors. And, of course, what is it with a trade deadline if there isn't Aaron Gordon trade rumors? A rival executive... hold on, Dave. I got this. You can go off in a second. A rival executive believes only Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz are considered untouchable on the Orlando Magic. That means that Evan Fournier, Nikola Vucevic, and Aaron Gordon could be available. And, of course, every year it comes out, Aaron Gordon is reportedly eager to welcome a change of scenery. Who wouldn't, trying to get out of Orlando? And the teams that have shown interest are Minnesota, Dallas, Denver, Golden State, and the Houston Rockets have been particularly motivated to find a deal. Now, I'm sure that there will be a lot more teams that come out about him. And there was actually someone I want to start with, is that the Magic and the Timberwolves were nearing a deal that was centered around Aaron Gordon before Gordon's injury, and that would have had Ricky Rubio going back to the Orlando Magic. So overall, I just want to get your thoughts on this, on the Aaron Gordon trade rumors in general first before we go into specifics.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you bring up the in general, because I think this is something that we've expected to happen for a while. Obviously, this Magic season has had one major injury after another. The team seems cursed. I truly feel bad for them at this point. They're almost at that level of Trailblazer-esque injury proneness. It's just like, what happened to this team? I wish we could fix them. I mean, with Isaac out, Fultz out, Aaron Gordon missing a chunk of time now. They had literally no point guards for a period of time. Like, it's just been a really tough year for them. So when you look at this team, though, Aaron Gordon's the obvious odd man out, with Jonathan Isaac's ascendance into, like, this kid definitely is something special on the defensive end and could be special on the offensive end. And now with the emergence of Chuma Okeke post his injury rookie year, where now he had a redshirt year for his contract. It starts now. It's been great. He's looked amazing for them. He will be their starter going forward, with Isaac probably playing the 4. Like, Aaron Gordon just doesn't have a home. Like, that's all it is. He just doesn't fit. The contract doesn't make sense. The expectations of being that top tier draft pick in Orlando, I think I saw it best on their own subreddit, was thank God more people don't watch the Orlando Magic games, because they would know how disappointed he's been.
Yeah.
Like, That's an incredibly harsh homer take.
Yeah. Right.
But I think it's the time. The time has been right for the last 2 years in my mind, but it seems like there's finally a reason to make the deal happen. I'm shocked that we didn't hear the Boston Celtics had a deal almost in the works. They've had about 35 other almost in the works deals this season, so that would just make sense. But the Timberwolves and Rubio is an interesting one because he's been such a key to their success. Like the only times that team looks good, it feels like it's on the back of Ricky Rubio willing this offense into something that looks like not shit. Because obviously they've got a lot of young guys in this team with potential, but none of them are leaders. None of them are facilitators on the level of a Ricky Rubio. And you heard Anthony Edwards speak highly of Ricky Rubio, saying he's the best leader he's ever had on a team. Again, extremely young kid, so take that with a grain of salt, but still don't take anything away from Ricky Rubio and his talents. I think at the end of the day, I don't know if that same deal gets done today as it was going to happen a month ago prior to Aaron Gordon's injury because of Rubio's impact on this young roster.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves bringing in Chris Finch obviously has changed their team a lot. They've started to use Anthony Edwards a lot more as an offensive initiator instead of just sticking him in the corner like Saunders was in the past. And they've looked – their record still hasn't been great the last couple of games, but they're actually competitively losing instead of – they're just down 30 every night in the third quarter and Cat only plays 25 minutes. It's a completely different mindset that I've seen. And with the Timberwolves, I don't know if they're going to be willing to move Ricky Rubio because, obviously for the right price they would. But for Aaron Gordon now, I don't really know if he makes complete sense next to Cat. I don't really know if he adds exactly what you want to have next to Cat when you talk about a complementary 4 or 5, depending on where you want to play Cat. I think if you're going to talk about a team that the Magic might get a deal done with, it's probably the Rockets. I think the Rockets are desperate for talent overall in general. We'll talk about them later when we talk about their draft, but as of now, they're just the owner doesn't want to. What is the word? What's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't want to concede. He doesn't want to concede that they giantly messed up the entire James Harden situation, the Russell Westbrook situation, the Chris Paul situation, the PJ Tucker situation they're blowing right now. I mean, They made some great moves in the offseason. Christian Wood was a great value buy at the market value that they got him at. But now this whole roster, complete turnover. John Wall's hurt again. He needs to have surgery again. And they're saying that he can come back this season, but I don't even think he will because right now this team is sitting as a bottom 3 record in the NBA. So why rush back John Wall when there's no point? You're not going to make the playoffs. Christian Wood should be...
Especially the draft pick at the top. That's one thing you have to consider.
You just want to get a top 5 pick. Kevin Porter Jr., and Jay Sean Tate have been pretty outstanding for this team so far in the limited playing time that Kevin Porter Jr. has played.
Also you got to consider KJ Martin.
Yeah, KJ Martin has also been pretty good. They have a lot of good talent. I wouldn't say it's all young because Jay Sean Tate's already 25. It's still young, but it's not like... But
they're getting... It seems like they've got all these hustle and effort like it's a G League squad mentality, which is super fun to watch. David Nwaba, a guy who's floated around the NBA, made a stop in Chicago for sure. It's just you like to root for those kind of teams, but they have no shot in these games. I mean, I think the Nuggets game? They were a 16-point underdog. Yeah, like the betting line is that far out and in front. Like, so I agree. The Rockets are a team that seems desperate for talent, and they have a piece that is up for grabs because clearly Victor Oladipo does not want to be there.
I was going to say, and you sent me a trade earlier today that involves a 3. I don't have the deal up right in front of me if you want to pull it up because I don't. I think that Aaron Gordon, I don't know if I want to say that he's absolutely going to get moved because the Magic, I don't understand their organization most of the time. It seems like their situation right now with their roster is that they, for years, they've now drafted who they thought was the BPA at their spot. And now they need like Mo Bamba, Aaron Gordon, Cole Anthony, even when they had Markelle Fultz. They need to start clearing out some of these players and getting fits. They need to start figuring out this roster and figuring out where they need to improve instead of because they have enough talent to be a playoff team year in and year out. They just need to 1, stay healthy, which is the big thing, and 2, they need to actually fill their needs instead of just being like that's the best player, even though Mo Bamba doesn't fit into this team anymore unless you're going to have him play as a backup 5. So
he's, hit or miss. Ken Burch has had some really good games. He's more stable. Bamba has been a bit more volatile. Either he will be useful out there or completely net negative. So, like, it's a consistent playing time in this Magic system has not been there for him. I'm glad they finally did pull the trigger on moving Chumer to the starting lineup over like Gary Clark, which was like, really, we're fucking, this is a conversation, like we're even having. But I do have that trade up. So it was a 3-team deal. 2 of these is problem solvers, the Magic and Rockets, as we mentioned earlier. And the third team, obviously Victor Oladipo's ideal team being the Miami Heat. So this deal would work out like so. Victor Oladipo would land on the Miami Heat.
Yep.
The Rockets would receive back Aaron Gordon and Myers Leonard, and the Magic would receive a package of Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, and Mo Harkless. This fits all the needs for each team as far as contracts are concerned. If you feel like there needs to be picks included at some point, be my guest. This was a deal I did see something similar to. I had to riff on it a little bit to make the contracts work. But I did see this on a couple subreddits passed around, both r/NBA and the Magic's own subreddit. So I think it's a deal where every team kind of gets a little bit of what they need. The Rockets get pure talent just from getting Aaron Gordon. The Heat get their guy in Victor Oladipo. He's where he wants to be. He can sign an extension for something more reasonable. I don't think he's going to get more than $22 million a year on this Heat team. I think with his injury, with his shooting splits, he's likely looking at a more team-friendly deal and trying to rehab that situation. And the Magic get a nice chunk of depth. They get Duncan Robinson, who is due for a payday after this year, but is an incredible floor spacer. They're going to probably lose Fournier, so that solves that problem for them. And then Kendrick Nunn, someone who has had an insane amount of usage for a young player. He's got run all the way through the NBA Finals, where he seemingly was their starter through the regular season, lost all minutes in the playoffs, and was completely benched, and then worked his way back in because of injuries to being, a 20-plus minute guy in the NBA Finals, where he looked legitimate again. So, we're talking about serious upside for another young player. So I think that, each team does get something out of this.
Yeah, I think if we're going to look at it from each team's perspective, I think the Rockets take it in a heartbeat, first off. I think it's going to be the Heat I can already hear the Heat fans saying we're not trading Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson for somebody that he can get in the offseason. But I've always been a proponent of, if the guy is out there now, you go and get him now, because Victor Oladipo does make that team better now. And I know that Victor Oladipo has struggled with his shooting splits this year. I get it. I partly think it's because he doesn't want to be in Houston, and he's battled with his health in and out this season, which is going to be always a topic with Victor Oladipo, is if he can stay healthy or not. But when he's healthy, he creates a big three on that team in the Miami Heat. If you get that Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Victor Oladipo, then that is a East contender second tier, because they're not on the level of the Nets, obviously. But second
I don't know if you've looked at the standings.
I have looked at the standings. They're fourth now. I see.
They're doing nothing but winning since Jimmy's been back.
Yeah, they've been good. I have been a critic of them. I still am going to be a critic of them, because they could be a great regular season team. I think in the playoffs, this team, I think they're going to get to the second round and get pummeled by one of the top 3 teams, because they don't have that third star. And Bam Adebayo. Yeah, exactly. This is your move to get the third star. But then I go back to the point where they weren't willing to trade Duncan Robinson to get James Harden. So are they really going to trade Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson to go get Victor Oladipo? It's not my philosophy, it's their philosophy. Are they going to wait because they have the bird rights to Duncan Robinson? You can sign Victor Oladipo and then sign Duncan Robinson back in the offseason and go over the cap. So it's a risk now versus waiting later, and maybe, I wouldn't say throwing, because they made the NBA Finals last year, but I don't think this team is good enough this year when the Nets are in the East, the Sixers, if healthier, in the East, and those are the 2 teams I don't think they're better than in the East. So sitting there and waiting for the offseason, and then, or do you go for it? And because Embiid has injury history, Ben Simmons could be hurt, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant all have injury histories. Do you go for it this year is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive push for them, and I know giving up someone who is as promising as Duncan Robinson is, and Kendrick Nunn, who has been kind of like a filler role for you at the guard position, he can step up when other guys don't. It is an ask, but I'm afraid Duncan Robinson's going to get a Davis Bertans deal thrown his way from someone.
Yeah.
He's going to get, $18 to $22 million a year from some team who just has cap money. So, even if they can go over to resign him, I don't see Pat Riley paying that kind of money for Duncan Robinson. He'll be like, yeah, we got, let me go down to the 12th man on the roster. Who we got down here? He is our new shooting guard of the future. I forgot. Oh, they did Max Strus.
Max Strus, yep.
Yes, he literally had a game where he 9 threes, 10 threes.
Yeah, the game
I
where
think it was 9.
he had a game where he had like 19 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals. He's just getting straight buckets.
Yeah. So like that's the thing that is the most Pat Riley thing you can do. I mean, that's you say that yes they could do this thing, but I see it going a different way in reality. And that's why I wonder. It's also low key solves a Myers Leonard problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Just quietly ship him out of town.
Yeah, just to wrap up this topic with the Magic, I want to move on to the other two guys real quickly who were rumored to be talked about being moved. Vucevic and Evan Fournier. I think we all assume that Evan Fournier is probably going to get moved because of his expiring contract. The only team I've even seen out there who has been interested in him is the Hornets. So I think that would be a pretty interesting fit with the Hornets. I don't know who would exactly go back, but I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't know who would go back. And two, does this mean that Terry Rozier comes off the bench? Does this mean that what happens with that? I don't think it should. But what the interesting part is they could go small ball if they wanted to and play PJ Washington at the 5, Evan Fournier, LaMelo, Terry, and Gordon Hayward if they wanted to go small ball if they get Evan Fournier. But is there any other teams that you think could show interest in Evan Fournier or push across a deal before the deadline?
I mean, I'll just speak real quickly on the Charlotte behalf. I think they're looking for someone more stable than Malik Monk, to be honest with you. They don't want to pay him. Yeah. He's clearly proven that he has worth out there, but he's so wildly inconsistent right now with his performances that I think they know that moving forward, LaMelo Ball is a wild card on his own, and you're like, hey, we're going to have our up and down nights from him. Gordon Hayward's a stabilizer. Terry Rozier's solid. We're going to get good shooting out of Graham, but like, we need a bench scorer. And that's why I'm surprised the name you didn't mention was Terrence Ross.
Yep.
Terrence Ross is the hottest name on the Heat outside of Aaron Gordon in my mind. Vucevic is not going anywhere. People who think that he will be traded are out of their goddamn minds. He's so fucking talented, and he's so under the radar valued because he's on the Magic and no one fucking cares about them. So I think Vucevic stays. I think Terrence Ross is most likely off. I think Fournier's contract makes it difficult to move him. Yeah. I've heard some Gary Harris plus kind of a deal out there with Terrence Ross and Fournier going over there, and Gary Harris and I forget which pieces to contract fill that out as a deal. That one seemed interesting because I think that Terrence Ross and Fournier would both be a good addition. Obviously, they'd lose on a little defense on the Nuggets side, but they would never slow down tempo on offense, which I think would be incredible for them. And they'd have another guy in Terrence Ross who can just attack when you don't have Jamal Murray playing like a top 5 player of all time in the playoffs. If he isn't shooting 70, 60, 95, you're going to need somebody else to score points for you. So I like the idea of the Nuggets getting involved. We always talk about them being such an asset-rich team that I want them to pull the trigger on something. We keep on waiting for something to happen. And it's all right, you guys prove that you are not flukes, but now it's the question of can you actually compete against these top teams for a championship? And I think they're a move away from doing that.
Yeah, and then I was going to ask you the last question on this topic was Vucevic. You don't think I'm in agreement with you. I would assume he doesn't get moved. Do you think that if you had to throw one team out there that could make, I don't think he will. If there was one team that could make a move for him, is there a team that?
I mean, the Boston Celtics, the Boston fucking Celtics. I tell you, Jake.
Oh God, yeah.
The Boston Celtics could and should make a move, but it won't happen because it's the Boston Celtics.
That's fair. Well, I was going to throw out a team for Evan Fournier, but instead of that, since they're our next topic, I'm going to just transition to that. I think. Oh, let's see. There we go. So Joel Embiid, the injury history comes back to bite him once again. The Philadelphia 76ers star Joel Embiid's MRI showed no structural damage to his left knee, just a bone bruise. ACL and meniscus are fine somehow. That man has some flexible knee ligaments, is all I'm going to say. Sixers sources expect Embiid could miss 2 weeks with a bruise, which is described as deep. So, my question is, we'll start with the Sixers and then we'll transition to how this affects kind of the East in general or some other things in general. With the Sixers, do you think this makes a move that they should have to make a move now, or do you think they can just wait on it? Because I know that it said 2 weeks, but we know the Sixers and we know Joel Embiid. I wouldn't expect him back any sooner than 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a month. It just depends on how much. I think they should take his time with this. Do you think this means anything should be imminent for the Sixers in trade talks?
I mean, the name that's been floated out there previously is still floated out there in Kyle Lowry. We still haven't heard any updates on that end. He tells his teammates he's being traded. He tells anybody who asks he's going to be traded. Yeah. But the Raptors haven't actually pulled the trigger on a deal that we assume would be centered around Tyrese Maxey going back to the Raptors as I guess he's a centerpiece, right? Or would it be just the draft pick on top of that?
Yeah, I think he would be the centerpiece along with some expiring veteran deals. Just if you, it'd probably be Danny Green would be throwing, Mike Scott would be throwing. That's 19 million that you get off the books after this year, and you can spend. And Tyrese Maxey's on a very cheap rookie deal for the next 3 seasons.
So I mean, like that's the one that's out there, but it doesn't address the problem of Joel Embiid's health, really.
Yeah.
We've seen some great play out of Dwight Howard. We've also seen very large chunks of time where Dwight on the court is a bad thing.
You know what you didn't mention, though? You want to mention the last 3 games, how good Tony Bradley has been for the Sixers?
Okay.
Wendell Carter Jr.'s father in the paint. Doc talked about him today, actually. Tony Bradley he's lost 25 pounds since the beginning of the season. They basically talked to him and said that he has to get in shape. And I can see why. I mean, is he a solution? No. But with how condensed the second half of the schedule is, to have a third center and allowing Embiid to rest, since the All-Star break, the Sixers are averaging 129 points per game. They've won 3 straight games by 20 points or more, and the bench is averaging 55 a game in the last 5 games. I don't know what happened at the All-Star break. Something triggered. I don't know what it is. Tobias Harris, again, is just proving why he should have been an All-Star, and I will stick
he's
on
back on fire.
I'll stick on that. I think he had like 23, 8, and 7 last game or something like that. Tonight, obviously, these stats are all before tonight. They play the Knicks tonight. Should be an interesting game with Tibbs' defensive style. But so the whole Kyle Lowry situation, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have thought a deal gets done. Now I'm kind of sitting here and how well the Sixers bench has played. It concerns me a little bit. It concerns me because I think Daryl Morey might sit and be like, I like the pieces we have. We have a $7 million MLE we can use on a buyout. We'll wait and see what comes out. I think that's the wrong idea. I still think this team needs another piece to be able to compete with the Nets. And if they seriously do go and get Kyle Lowry, you're going to hear me say that I think they have a very strong chance of going to the NBA Finals, because I think Kyle Lowry addresses a ton of these problems. And even when Joel Embiid's hurt, Kyle Lowry is a guy who will win you games. And the Sixers need the toughness. The toughness that Kyle Lowry brings and the leadership that he brings, and he's won a ring. They need a guy like that. Danny Green and Dwight Howard were added this year, and you can see the changes that they've made, and that they are the vocal leaders of the team along with Tobias Harris, and they drag this team along. In the games that the Sixers lost in the past where they seemed lackadaisical or they're up 15 and they almost blow it in like a 3-minute span, those really don't happen anymore. It happens once or twice in a season. That's always going to happen with teams. But they don't really look like the Sixers of the past because they've added such winning players, and you have to credit Doc Rivers to that. I'd be interested to see. I don't know. I guess what I'll say is the only couple names that have been floated out there, I think Evan Fournier, I read a couple of days ago, if they were willing to move Danny Green and a pick for Evan Fournier, it'd basically be a straight swap, so the Magic could get a pick and an expiring contract. And then the name that's been floated around for months is PJ Tucker. If they want to get a stretch 5, if that is your solution to Embiid being hurt, if you want to start a stretch 5 with the starters when Embiid's out, what do you think of that? Do you think are there any more realistic targets for the Sixers?
I mean, I think PJ Tucker makes the most sense, and he's the hottest name right now as far as guys who need to be moved. Like, Kyle Lowry doesn't have to be moved this season. It just seemed inevitable with all the conversation going around in the shape of that team currently. But PJ Tucker's in a situation where he's done with the team. He's done with the org. He wants out. His value, I don't know how he has value out there after the point of him telling them, I ain't playing it. We're just done, basically. So, like, I get that they want value back for him, but it almost, like, would the Rockets be so spiteful to Daryl Morey that they wouldn't do a deal with him and they would let it hit the cut date and they would just cut him and let him hit waivers?
I think I read today Brian Windhorst said he was talking about Lakers targets, and he said that PJ Tucker will be a trade, regardless if it's with the Sixers or with anybody. There's going to be teams interested in him, regardless. It's not just the Sixers sitting here.
No, definitely not.
We talked about last week how any team should want to add PJ Tucker if they're in contention to win a ring. He makes any team better. He jumps into any rotation, and they might be spiteful enough to not trade him to the Sixers just because of Daryl Morey. But at the same time, we can already point back and look how that turned out for them with the James Harden trade. They could have gotten Brent Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, and 3 first-round picks, and they said no. So I don't really... I don't know.
Sorry, man. They stole a fucking freebie from the Cavaliers, and they got the next James Harden.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a completely separate trade that they actually made a good deal on. But the fact that the Sixers definitely had the best offer out there, and even the second best offer from the Nets, they basically said no to, because they didn't take Jared Allen, they didn't take Karis LeVert, and they went and they got fucking Victor Oladipo for 3 months, and they turned James Harden into Victor Oladipo and like what 4 late first round picks. Congrats, Rockets did great.
I mean, hey, they're late today. Let's not jinx what's going to happen going forward. We've seen this trade happen before,
True.
Jake. We got to roll back the clock to Boston and the Nets and go, in 3 years, how good is this Nets team going to be if Kyrie leaves, if James is the only guy there, or he demands his way out and KD is fucking moved on to greener pastures? Like,
yeah,
this could be that situation all over again. So I think that, at the end of the day, we won't know the value of this trade for years to come. It's the same way that the Paul George situation happened. Like, yes, Shea is awesome, but like the fucking Thunder have 17,000 picks. So like, you're gonna tell me which one came from that deal, but still, we won't know for a while, I think, and that's the same situation here. It looks bad on paper. Jared Allen literally had one of his worst games of the season though recently, which did not help his image, but
I think this whole Sixers team in general is they need to add probably 2 pieces would be my assumption. They still need to add a bench piece, and I still think they need to add the starting piece. They need to add a ball-handling guard who can play with the starters, and they need to add a big who can shoot with the bench. I think it's pretty simple what they have to do, but they don't have many. Tyrese Maxey is really the only player of value they have that's young. I mean, I love B-Ball Paul, love him to death, but
he's not worth anything value-wise.
No, they did say in other news his contract is a 2-way currently. It's going to be converted to an NBA deal here soon, which is good to see. So I don't know exactly what gets done with this team. I still think there's a strong chance Kyle Lowry gets traded. I don't know if it's to the Sixers because I think some other team could come with a higher offer who has more draft capital. The Sixers have a lot of draft capital, but there are teams out there who have way more than the Sixers, including a team like, I'll take that back because I was going to say the Lakers, but the Lakers don't have their picks because they're all in New Orleans. That's dumb by me. It's hard for me, and I still think I'm gonna throw the Celtics out there. I know it's the Celtics. The Celtics, hey, listen here, Dave. Do you want to trade? You want to trade Kemba Walker? You want to trade Kemba Walker to the Raptors and get Kyle Lowry to the Celtics?
How many firsts do the fucking Celtics have to give to
3.
them to take Kemba Walker?
3, probably 3. Yeah, I guess
I checked Twitter again today, and it's the same today as it was a year ago today. Romeo Langford out with injury.
Oh my gosh.
We still haven't seen him play in the fucking NBA.
Yeah.
Like, how long are we gonna have to wait on that kid? And it's just the same thing about Celtics fans. At least they finally got Robert Williams playing. Like,
he's a god.
He has been so good for them, and we waited 3 years to just barely start to play him, and now he's edging out fucking aging TT. Really? That's where we're at?
Yeah,
I mean, that whole team, I want to not their segment, guys, not their segment.
So I think if you're talking about the Sixers, if they could add Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker, I think this team becomes an NBA Finals contender. I think right now they're probably an Eastern Conference Final contender, and if they can add a somewhat star piece in Kyle Lowry and one of the best bench pieces in the NBA in PJ Tucker, then they can elevate themselves to start talking about maybe they can take a couple games off the Nets and make things interesting. That's when that becomes a topic. It all comes down to Joel Embiid's health. The only other thing I wanted to ask with this is now this wide opens the MVP race. He's probably going to miss 3 to 4 weeks, which probably means he's out of the MVP race. It's too many games that he missed. So who jumps now? Who becomes the favorite? The narrative from the media is still going to push LeBron because it's always going to be LeBron. But you have to the name has to start popping up. He's going to get screwed again, but James Harden has to start coming up. James Harden has elevated the Brooklyn Nets to a completely different level than they were before. And I mean, I thought he had a quiet game last night. I looked at the stat line, 21, 15, and 15. I was like, what? He is mind-blowing as a player. And I know the media narrative is always going to push LeBron, and I think it's going to start turning to Jokic, even though they're the 5 seed. I know that's going to start happening. Yep. But James Harden is the name, and if I had to pick an MVP right now, it would be James Harden.
Yeah, no, we're very much in the same camp here. LeBron James is the best player in the league, but we're going to see where his stat line goes, his rest is, because Anthony Davis is going to be out till we don't know.
Yeah.
I tossed out the ball shot or the dart that, like, probably about 2 weeks before the playoffs start, we'll see Anthony Davis get serious playing time again. I don't think they're in any rush to force him back for meaningless regular season games, but it does bring into question how much LeBron James will have to play to make sure this team has comfortable seating going into the playoffs. Jokic, stud. Absolutely a stud. Does he deserve love? Yes. Will he be the MVP ever? Probably not. There's definitely a bias there against Denver and what they're doing. And yeah, James Harden. I don't think any man is more hated by the media than James Harden.
Yeah.
They hate him, but they love to talk about him. He will not win because this is not an award given out by consensus or fair like judgment. Because clearly, if it was like the best player would win this award, let's be honest, LeBron James would have never lost.
He would be a 20-time MVP.
Like Kevin Durant might have stolen one, Steph would have stolen one, but that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it in the last fucking 15 years, 20 years. Like, that's where we're at. So I think that, yes, LeBron James is the likely favorite now to walk with this one. Low-key, we just talked about them. Vucevic down there.
Oh, God.
Getting some fucking fan vote, the underdog vote going to Vucevic, which I love to hear. It's that whole, like, best player on a bad team. Like, the shine Bradley Beal got last year.
Yep.
Very much that. He's getting that, and I think people are starting to recognize just how good he is, just how talented he is. So I'm glad that they're doing that, but he's still not getting traded. And now there's Bradley Beal. So deal with it, fucking big market teams who want to say that, oh, yeah, you should give up your best player because you're a bad team. Like, why the fuck would we do that? Like,
I would be remiss by retro if I didn't mention Kawhi Leonard's name in this MVP discussion. I don't think
he's a goddamn ghost.
Thank you.
He didn't stand a chance.
I don't think he's the MVP, but every time that we talk about the MVP, I hear retro going, "Oi, mate, oi, it's Kawhi, mate." I mean, the Clippers might be the most inconsistent team I've ever watched in the NBA in the last 5 years. They confuse me to death. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is an MVP candidate, but Clippers fans will hold on to that. I think now it comes down. I think now it just comes down to James Harden, Jokic, and LeBron. Jokic, LeBron, and James Harden. I don't really know if anybody else. I mean, somebody could push their way in. I don't think any of the Utah guys are. I don't think any of the Clipper guys are. I think those are the only teams it comes down to. If I heard somebody say Kyrie, there's no way you give it to Kyrie over James Harden. It's just
he's playing so well, but this team doesn't move the fucking rock like they do with James Harden. Gives them wins.
Yep.
He is their cohesion, which is hilarious because of how poor of a fucking teammate he has been rumored to be.
And
so
isn't it? Let me just before I move on to the next topic, let me just say, isn't it wild that as soon as James Harden got out of a hero ball system, like everybody said he would, he stopped playing hero ball? Isn't it crazy that he's just like a top 5 player in the NBA and people still want to take it away from him every single year because he played hero ball in Houston and his teammates sold him in the NBA in the Western Conference Finals? It's just
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Also, last night, just got to say, James Harden absolutely locked up Julius Randle in clutch time in the post. You know why? Because he's one of the best post defenders in the NBA, even though that narrative still gets pushed that he doesn't play defense. But we're going to move on to our favorite topic, Dave. You know what it is. It's the NBA draft. It's always the NBA draft. And you know what? We're going to talk about James Harden's old team, the Houston Rockets. We're going to talk about the best fits for the Houston Rockets in the draft. How we'll do this is we'll start off, we'll talk about if they got the number 1 pick, then we'll move to if they got 2 or 3, and then we'll move just to 4 or 5, and then beyond that. Well,
that's the thing. It is protected.
Yep, it is. You're right. What is
1 through 4 protection.
It's 1 through 4, right? So they can't get after that. I forgot about that. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. We'll just talk about
and then they do have the later, they've got the late one from
Trailblazers.
Portland.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll talk about them. So Dave, if you have to hit the wall, you can. If they get the number 1 overall pick, who are they going to take? Or who should they take?
How is it not Cade Cunningham? This team has so much upside with young talent that Cade Cunningham would be the ultimate guy. And I don't know if you've seen the interviews lately coming out from former players and guys around the scene. Cade's been doing a bunch of interviews. He's had a lot of media time. And like, this kid's a professional. Like, he is not a college athlete. He's not a kid who's, a couple months removed from high school. Like, he is a grown-ass man. He's an adult. He gets it. He's well composed. He knows the game, and he's not someone who is overly emotional about it. Like, It's everything you want to hear. It's this kid is not a kid. He is a man who's ready to play fucking basketball.
I think I'll be the devil's advocate here is they have John Wall locked up for 2 more years, paying him over $40 million over the next 2 seasons. So if you want to look, we'll go realistic at what their future lineup is going to look like. The 2 and the 3 is going to be Jay Sean Tate and Kevin Porter Jr. I think in my mind, those are the future 2-3. At the 5, you're going to have Christian Wood. Then the 1 and the 4 are where you're going to kind of be like, these are the holes they have to fill. Because I get John Wall.
Like Cade Cunningham could play either one of those.
I was going to say, I get that John Wall's there, but I'm not planning my future around John Wall, how even old is he? And he's got to be early 30s now. And and his knees have been through like their World War II. They're like they're 50. I mean, he is His knees are gone. So if you're drafting, I always say that you draft best player, not best fit. So if you're looking at this team, I think again, Cade Cunningham. We talked about him last week. I can gush over him again if you want me to. It's Cade Cunningham. He can score at the first and third level so well. He passes so well. His defense is actually improving game by game at Oklahoma State. You're seeing it. I think he has the motor to play on both ends and be a great two-way player. I mean, he's Ben Simmons with a shot and less defense.
And you're seeing him take over games offensively. Yeah. This Oklahoma State team had no right winning games in the last week, and yet this man fucking stepped up and it counted. I loved it. Cade on this team would be special. I mean, him facilitating, him moving the ball, him opening up that offense, like it's exactly everything every team is looking for. But the Rockets would love to get this. And again, it's the question of like, how rigged is the NBA draft? Are we going like, hey, we'll be honest, it's rigged every once in a while. Obviously, we had a little bit of a nudge and a hint that Zion was going to go to the team that just gave up their best player in a massive deal with the Lakers to make things even. Now, will it happen again with James Harden? He was more hated by the league and by the media. Would they do it again? Will Houston get the one overall? I don't know.
That's a whole lot.
I know.
That's more your territory.
That's a wicked question.
I'm gonna stay in reality over here and just think if they do get the number one pick, I would love to see a lineup of John Wall, Cade Cunningham, Jae'Sean Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., and Christian Wood.
That'd be so good.
I'm not the biggest John Wall fan, but he can play. He
still brings it.
Yeah, he still brings it, and Cade Cunningham can guard 1 through 4. So that's not a problem defensively. And giving Kevin Porter
Jae'Sean Tate can guard 1 through 5. Yeah. So you got two extremely versatile defenders out there. KPJ is someone who probably can guard, 2s and 3s without a problem. I don't know about his foot speed on 1s.
Yeah.
He's a little slower laterally on the defensive end, so that would concern me. But still, versatile defenders and wingspan for days out there. So like that's what this key to this Rockets team has been, is just we got a bunch of high effort, high energy guys who are going to ball out. And yes, every game won't be a win, but it will be fun to watch.
Yeah, and this team, I mean, with new coaching, they've kind of still stayed to the Mike D'Antoni system. They play fast. This team runs. They go up and down the entire game, and that's why guys like Christian Wood and John Wall have fit so well on their system. I know that their record doesn't show it, but they've played pretty decently. John Wall has definitely been better than I thought he would, coming off both of his knee injuries.
That's right.
Okay, not worth the money at all.
I'm a John Wall defender, whatever.
Yeah, I know. You were defending him for years. I know. But
I will continue to.
I would love to see Cade Cunningham in this system, of him throwing lobs to Christian Wood and running the pick and roll with Christian Wood and giving Kevin Porter Jr. and Jae'Sean Tate you don't have to ball handle that much anymore, which is good. It's just not as what they this is not what they need to do, is ball handle more. The fact that you've had John Wall and Cade Cunningham as your primary and secondary ball handler, which is good. If you bring Cade Cunningham in, and at first in his NBA career, you say, okay, you're the secondary ball handler. You're not going to be our initiator every time, but at all times, they can have one of John Wall or one of Cade Cunningham on the court. And
Kevin Porter Jr. had a 10 assist game in like his first pro game.
I know.
They have options. It's so frustrating as a fan of a team who got stuck in the middle to watch a team that's so young and so upside and promising, and like they have all of the options available to them. Like, I think this Rockets team, Cade would obviously be the best answer at 1, but like even if they go to if they get 2, like my clock is still telling me that it's JG4. But if they go Mobley here,
that's what I was
you could have 2 bigs. One with Christian Wood, who is an amazing offensive talent, who defensively is still working to get better. But then you add in Mobley, a big who is a amazingly gifted rim protector, someone who has size, someone who has ball handling skill for that size. Like, he's got an incredible upside. Like, you can legit play 2 bigs out there and look really damn good doing it.
I was going to say, Evan Mobley, if they do get 2, fits this system so well with how well he moves at his size, and how we called it last week. He doesn't look wonky. He looks so natural in the movements that he has, is that he fits this system that they play so well, because like we said, his shot is improving every single game. You can stick him anywhere on the court. He doesn't have to be the pick guy in a pick and roll offense. He can play in the corner. He can play on the wing. He can play whenever, and you stick him there, and he can be effective. Him and Christian Wood would be, electric. That front court would be so much fun to watch. I still think, again, if they're at 1, Cade Cunningham, if they're at 2, then it becomes interesting, because I think you sit there and you sit between JG4 and you sit between Evan Mobley, and those two both fit needs this team has. It just depends what kind of lineup you want to go towards. Do you want to go towards a 3-wing setup? Do you want to go with the 3 wings with Tate, Porter, and you want to add JG4 on that?
Oh man,
Or do you, that's Dave's like wet dream right there. Jason Tate and JG4 playing together. Or do you want to go 2 bigs? It just depends what kind of offense they want to have. Daryl Morey is out of the team, so you know it's not going to be small ball, which he loves. It was just it's so ironic still. I still laugh. Or do you go with the wings? It's such a good problem to have. And you said that as a team that got stuck in the middle, like the Chicago Bulls right now, it is so refreshing to see a team lose 16 games in a row because you know they're not going anywhere, and you know that they can add this generational talent if they get a top 5 pick in this draft, or top 3 for generational talent, I guess. It's so refreshing to see a team not get stuck in the middle, and I hope that when Christian Wood comes back, I think he comes back this week, that they don't start winning, because I want them to keep losing, because I want them to have their pick.
They need this pick.
Yeah.
I mean, John Wall will not play for the rest of the year if it means they get this pick. Like, whoever has to go down to injury is gonna get injured. That is this front office. I do not consider any punches to be pulled. Like, this will happen. They will not put themselves in a position where they don't have the highest chance to keep their pick, because this is the ultimate year to bottom out. Great, we lost. We moved on from Bradley Beal, and we moved on from James Harden, we moved on from Boogie.
Bradley Beal. You said Bradley.
Sorry.
Beal. Russell Westbrook. I know. I was just stopping.
My brain had a fucking aneurysm.
Same team.
Okay. Same team. You moved on from Brody. You moved on from Harden. You moved on from Boogie. Like, all these big name talents off the team. You're no longer the team you were 2-3 years ago, where you were literally like the Western Conference killers out there of like, we will play 3 and D, and we will just murder you with volume and defense. And like, that was great. This is a new face, new look team, new idea, and I'm just super excited. And I hope that they don't sacrifice the chance for that. I don't think they will. I think they'll play dirty. They'll eat a fine if they have to for not playing players. Like, they had 6 players available, and they had 8 players available. One had a broken hand.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing out there?
Sounds very Sixer-ish. I have to say, they are going to move on from Victor Oladipo most likely before the deadline, and they're going to move on from PJ Tucker too. So that's basically 4 or 5 players they've moved on from during the season that are no longer. I know that the narrative still kind of is that this owner doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose at all. That's why they traded for Victor Oladipo instead of getting young talent.
He doesn't want to pay money either.
He wants to get.
That's the thing. He's not paying money.
He wants the playoff revenue. That's what he wants. But if this team is to turn into an NBA contender, they have to keep losing. And I know people hate that. I know Pat from our Discord hates that. I know Tim from our Discord hates that. I know that a lot of people don't like this method of losing to end up winning. But you're seeing it pay dividends for teams. You're seeing it pay dividends for the Bucks, who were terrible for so long, and now they're finally good. You're seeing it pay dividends for they weren't bad, but the Celtics had teams picks who were bad. So they had picks from the Grizzlies, and you're seeing it pay off for the Sixers. You can literally look straight into your own conference or look into the West, whichever team you want, and you can see teams that are paying off from being bad for a 4 to 5 year stretch and getting this talent and hitting on their draft picks. And obviously, there's going to be teams that fail at it. There's going to be teams that fail at everything.
Yeah, I mean, you go further back and you see the generational drafting skills of fucking OKC, where in a matter of 5 drafts, they had a starting 5 that had 4 guys with all NBA skill. Like. What the actual that it's a 2-part thing. You have to suck, but then you also have to be a great talent evaluator. Yeah. And it is that tandem of things that will get you in a position to rebound a team into really great shape. And I think that that's yet to be seen. The fact that they were able to buy so low on someone with as much skill as Kevin Porter Jr. to go out there and make a move during the draft to get KJ Martin, someone who a lot of people were mocking them for, like, that guy wasn't even supposed to be drafted. He's only getting drafted based on his dad being a former NBA talent. And he had, I think, a 20-10 game in the last week. He looks like he is showing up and showing out. Like, I think there's so much to this team that points in the right direction that, like, regardless of the win-loss, you just have to look at the guys playing and see that we're on the right track. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the problem is like, okay, if we get Cade, if we get Mobley, if we get JG4 at the top of this draft, even like if you're 4th, like, would you take Kuminga or Suggs? I have to ask the question because that's their final pick.
That was my next
slot, top 4.
That was my next question. I think I'd lean Kuminga because I think Kuminga is that tweener 3-4 that you can play, or 2-3-4, whatever you want. He's a wing to a stretch big, and I think that fits next to Christian Wood and next to Tate and next to Porter. I think if you take Suggs, I'm not gonna say it's a bad pick. I like Suggs too. I also rate Kuminga higher than Suggs, so that's probably my personal bias coming in. I think Suggs isn't as versatile as a player to be able to play next to John Wall. So if you are going to take Suggs, I would expect Suggs would come off the bench to start the season. I don't think he would start. So that's where my only problem would be with it. And I think Kuminga could just plug in at the 4 next to Christian Wood, and that could be the not the solution, but maybe the long-term answer to that position.
Suggs got comped to Drew Holiday. That should be enough to tell you that I would take Suggs over Kuminga right now. Kuminga, yes, he got he had an amazing 3 games to start the G League, and he looks so good. And again, the thing to remember is he's so much younger. He's like a solid year younger than everybody else in this draft class, almost. And it's crazy how quick he has gotten to the game of basketball and how much he has progressed his own game. And he is the uber talent. So I think the Rockets would take him, but I think Suggs would be the better fit for them moving forward, regardless of John Wall's status. John Wall is a guy who we laugh about how awful his contract will be. He's got, like you said, 2 years remaining after this year, right?
Yeah, I believe it's 2 years.
So someone will be extremely excited about having a $50 million write-off at the end of a year. That's what I'm looking at, down the road. It's the, we don't even care about right now. Just he would be a great asset for the team moving forward. And I think that's the route I would take because I like the idea of that. I understand it's a higher floor, lower ceiling pick in my mind, because I think Kuminga is someone who could be that all-around wing who just does everything as a 2A wing, and he could be a top 10 player in the league. But Suggs is someone who is just I'm going to be a top shooter, I'm going to be a top defender, I'm going to give you effort, I'm a smart playmaker, and the ball doesn't have to live with me in order for the team to win. I will make the unselfish decisions, and that's what we've seen out of him in college. So I'm all about that team play, and I think you're going to have to keep Christian Wood and KPJ happy with high volume shots. So I think that he would be a nice complementary piece to that roster.
Yeah, John Wall is scheduled to make $44 million next year, and then in 2022-2023, it's a player option for $47 million. Gonna go out on the limb here and say he's gonna take it. So when you talk about Kuminga and you talk about Suggs, I mean, we talked about last time comparing Suggs to Jason Kidd, but with a better shot, which is wild to think about still.
Incredible,
but
yeah.
I think that Kuminga, the straight comp, is a good C-scam. I think that he is a guy who can attack with both hands. He's not afraid to finish in traffic. He's a solid defender who can guard 2 through 5. He can shoot. He's a good scorer. He's aggressive. He goes to the free throw line. He shoots well from the free throw line. He just doesn't have many weaknesses. The problem is morphing his body into an NBA body and then getting consistent play out of him instead of seeing these games where he goes 22, the next game 6, 23, 7. It's just that's
he can't head down. Also, that's one of the big problems with him is he kind of gets tunnel vision in line with the game. He doesn't necessarily he's not aware of his surroundings at all times in the game and not aware of the situations during games. And that's something that will come with someone who literally, we're talking about a handful of games in G League. These guys are playing way above their heads as far as the level of competition across from them and the basketball experience they're playing against. So it's to be expected to some extent. It was just really on showcase during those games that he's okay, maybe you need to cool a little bit on his basketball IQ, just a smidge.
The thing I like about Kuminga so much, and hopefully what he can grow on, is that he can dribble with either hand, he can drive with either hand, and he can finish with either hand. That's not something that's easily taught. We've seen that with players. There's players like Ben Simmons in the NBA who can finish with both hands so well that there's Ben Simmons, there's Zion, LeBron does it. Everybody who, I'm not comparing to those players, don't say that, but he is so versatile in his finishing that, first of all, he's so athletic that he finishes above most defenders in the G League, and you saw that, which we'll see if that carries over to the NBA, because everybody's a freak athlete usually in the NBA. But his ability to finish with either hand makes it so hard to guard him. And if he can work, the tunnel vision is the biggest criticism. The fact that when he puts his head down, he starts driving, he rarely passes it. So you saw a lot in G League defenses started collapsing on him and basically double or tripling him at the rim because they knew he wasn't going to pass out of it and he would just go up on it. So that's going to be the biggest criticism, but I think that's something that's coachable. I think that's something that you can fix. It's going to take time, obviously. Kuminga is, out of the top 5, the most non-sure pick out of the top 5. Everybody in the top 5 could all be absolute hits, and I think most of them will be. Kuminga is that big question mark, and it's going to be if the Rockets are willing to take that that risk on him at 4. But to transition to the last question, I think it depends what they do at 22 or what they do in the late first round. So who are some targets you think that they could base late in the late first round for their team?
I think they look towards some older guys who are going to get them better value. I think if they do end up at 2 or 3, and they're in a situation where they take someone who is not a point guard, I would absolutely circle in on Josh Giddey, who international. He's playing out of Australia right now in the NBL. He's someone who should absolutely be lottery talent. I don't know if he'll get there on NBA big boards, but if he is there, you have to take him. He's someone who I've seen projected anywhere from pick 33 to pick 17 right now. I expect him to keep rising, but if he somehow falls, 100% take him. He's a 6'8" guy with point guard skills. He's just absolutely something you want. I mean, we literally just watched LaMelo Ball do this, people.
Yeah.
So I have to re-explain this to you.
Yeah.
Definitely not the same skill set, different body build, but like still same idea of an oversized, really good ball handler. Jared Butler, just an incredible professional on the other end of the spectrum, someone who upperclassman, clean two-way guard, someone who can do everything for you, makes the right plays, incredibly smart, hardworking. Love the idea of them getting someone like that if they don't get Cade Cunningham at the top. And the third guy I would probably say is a name that's been falling, and I don't know where he'll go in the draft. He's one of my biggest mysteries. Is the guy who was the highest ranked international player in this class previous to this year was Usman Garaba. He's someone who everybody admonished for, hey, this is a guy who was playing up at age 16, age 17. Now he's 18, going to be turning, actually, he just turned 19, I think, this month or within the last 3 weeks. He is someone who's been playing up. And again, nothing about his game is spectacular, but it's all like he knows what he's doing. And he's just a smart, like 6'9", power forward who can play like small ball center for you. Think of like a highly polished TT coming out of basically Europe. So he has the upside to, hey, he can still get better on his shot. He can still get better on facilitating. But defensively, he's probably one of the best defensive centers or bigs in this class.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I would have thrown out Butler, and then I had Josh Christopher, and I had David Duke, not that David Duke. If they don't get a guard, I think David Duke, not that David Duke, is a guy who he's a consistent shooter. He doesn't have an elite first step, but he has good ball handling skills and he can finish at the rim. He's not going to be a standout point guard or shooting guard in the league wherever you put him, but he's going to be a solid bench player for a number of years. So I think if Houston is looking for the guard depth, if they go with an Evan Mobley or a JG4 or a Kuminga with that top pick, if they get it, then I think that David Duke, not that David Duke, would be a solid pick for them down here.
I have to ask the question for Ricky since he's not here. Would you not consider Ayo Dosunmu?
I was gonna throw his name out there, but I feel like we bring him up every show, so I didn't want to. I didn't, but I think he's an option. But again, it depends where they find his value. Because if he's gonna be a second round pick, then I'll wait and try to get him in the second round. If he boosts his value enough in this tournament where he does play very well and he boosts his value,
number one seed. I mean, they've got every chance in the world to make it
until Sister Jean beats him in the second round. Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
I think it's interesting. I don't really have a question to wrap up this segment. Just your overall thoughts on the Rockets' current situation and hopefully what they do the rest of the season, which I already can tell you is losing.
As much as we want to criticize this Rockets team for giving away their entire franchise, changing everything within a matter of literally a year, like this was a top team in the West, and now they're literally potentially the worst team in the NBA right now.
One of them.
I think they're in an incredibly hopeful place. I think that they're honestly in a really good place moving forward, and I would prefer their situation because it's clear the direction they're going. There are so many teams that are muddled in the middle. They're like, well, we have a chance to compete, but sort of sometimes we got some guys, but like we might have to pay some guys more than they're worth just to keep them around, and I don't think that that's going to help us get out of purgatory. So like, I don't really know what we're doing here. Kind of like that's the NBA hell is purgatory. That's the worst place you can be. Yep. The bottom is a great place to be because it's filled with hope. They've reset a lot of their contracts. They're in a situation where they're moving on from Oladipo. John Wall is not a long-term fixture on this team. Obviously, that massive player op he's going to take will turn into a massive advantage because someone if not this Houston team, someone will want to have
Yeah.
$47 million to have freed up in free agency the following year. So there will be value to it. Like, I can't be more positive about a terrible team. Like, I really don't know. Like, I would take their situation over other teams easily.
I would take their situation over the fringe playoff teams that are sitting there and they're like, hey, we could get that 8 seed.
What are you supposed to, like?
We're gonna get back.
When you look at the standings right now, and I hate to do this, but like, you know, if you're a team like Cleveland, if you're a team like Washington, if you're a team like the Raptors in the Eastern Conference alone, you're just like, okay, we're all sort of like close-ish, and we think we know who we want on our team, but at the same time, Cleveland's got 17 centers. Not sure if Drummond will get released. He'll probably just get released. I don't think
he'll get bought out. He'll get bought out.
Yeah. The Raptors, we talked about Kyle Lowry potentially going, but then they have other decisions to make going forward.
Yeah.
They're stuck at the outside looking in, weirdly enough, right now.
Yeah.
And like even the Hawks, who just seem to have a loaded, deep roster but underperforming, like
they've been playing well as of late. Since McMillan's come in and started coaching over Lloyd Pierce, they've been fine. But yeah, I think the Hawks just threw a bunch of money at a bunch of problems and thought they could fix a lot of their holes in one offseason instead of being patient. Which maybe if Gallo and Bogdanovich start playing well, then it'll. But they've played bad, so it hasn't helped any of their problems. The last thing I'll say on the Rockets is I think that people have way too much of a negative connotation when they look at a roster who's lost 16 in a row. And like you said, I think looking at this team, they actually have a pretty positive outcome here in the 2 to 3 year window that they're going to have. Is if they can land 2 to 3 top draft picks, or probably if they can land a top draft pick this year and then move for somebody else in the offseason or during the trade season next season, then I think that it becomes even more positive because the West is loaded. We know that. But
yeah, it's incredibly tough out there. And it's only going to get tougher as Golden State returns Klay Thompson, and they have potentially, if the T-Wolves get unlucky this year, which Adam Silver, we will see where the spite is.
Where is the spite?
He could fuck the T-Wolves and be like, pick number 5. How's that looking?
It's pretty good. It's Jalen Suggs. Still pretty good. I mean,
no, but that goes to the Warriors.
Oh, you're right. I forgot that it was. Oh my god!
That Wiggins deal.
Oh my god!
Like,
Kuminga on the Warriors. Oh my god! Kuminga on the Warriors. Oh my god!
So like that's a team. You look at the Kings. You look at the T-Wolves, and you go, those teams are fucked because they're in situations where they're bad and they're paying people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they still don't have an easy way to the top.
Yeah.
Like that's why the Rockets are, in my case, like one of my favorite teams to watch because I love Kevin Porter's game on the court. I love KG Martin's. I love watching Jay Sean Tate. Like, they're fun. C. Wood's been awesome. I'm so glad he got his bag. Again, going out, be terrible, enjoy yourselves, sift through this roster, find out who you guys are moving forward. But incredibly positive. I think that they've just got to address the guard and finding out if you want a defensive 4 or 5 to pair with Christian Wood and what that looks like for you going forward.
Yeah, and that's what. Oh, there's my. Yeah, there we go. It didn't light up green, so I was like, well, that's where we'll.
Almost made a clean show.
That's where we'll wrap up the show for today. Again, ! Patreon and Twitch chat or ! YouTube. Everything's in the description of the YouTube video when this goes up, and we'll be back tomorrow. Dave won't be. Tomorrow is Ricky and Soapy for Games Live right before the show tomorrow of NBA Sports Live, and Ricky and I will be detailing NFL free agency and the Bears' star new quarterback, and Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, is back. It'll be such a fun show. We have so much to go over. I hope you guys all enjoyed this MVP Sports Live, and I hope everybody has a great day.